Imagine taking your plant tracker from just a list to an intelligent system that basically takes care of itself. In the final video in my Notion for Beginners series, I'll help you set the database up so that it can tell you exactly when you need to next water or fertilize your plant. I'll show you how to create Notion automations that track watering and fertilizing schedules based on the specific plant, location, and season. After today, you'll never kill another houseplant from forgetfulness again, and you will be well on your way to being a Notion expert. Let's get started. Alrighty, we're back in our Notion for Beginners hub, and I'm going to come down here and duplicate this video. Again, highlight it, hit Control D or Command D on the keyboard. It does this new duplicating thing, and it will populate here. We're going to delete that, change that to 1.0.5, and enter automations here. I guess I didn't need the little hyphen because that's all this one's about. The YouTube link will be here after the video is live, including this one. And again, from like the last time, I'm very efficient today, so I've been batching, and that's why this one's not there yet. But by the time you get to it, it will be there. All right, we're going to open this up. And we're back in our trusty tracker that now has our history log. And what I forgot to do in the last video is remove those little symbols. So we're going to do that now. We put those there to help us find the correct database when we set up our relation. So the goal today is to get the database to automatically tell us when the next watering or fertilizing needs to happen. And we're going to do that by updating our water frequency and fertilizer frequency to a number, and then using the last water date and that number of days, we will choose to check a box and then filter into view for that. So there's a bunch of stuff, but let's just go through it and you'll see that it's actually pretty straightforward. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to change these types from text to number because we want this to accept a number of days. And I'm going to do this thing here by hitting this property description, and I'm going to tell this number of days, and I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. So this way, if I hover over that, it will tell me, it will remind me that that's what the property accepts, because we have to change this to a number 2, because it's handy if you don't remember in the future what that is. It's just a quick little shortcut there. So the next thing we need to know is we need to know how many days roughly between waterings we should go, and same thing for fertilizing. Now you could know this, but I think that there's a better way, and doing Google searches all over the place, there's a better way even than that. So what I'm going to show you is using Google's AI mode. If you've ever used the tool Perplexity, it's like that, but I like Google's because it's basically free. I haven't really noticed any limits on it, at least as of right now. So I'm going to pull over a new browser window, and I have this little button in my account that says AI mode. I did this in incognito and it didn't show. So what that tells me, let's actually open an incognito browser, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to google.com, takes me back there. Oh, the button did show this time. Don't know why it didn't when I was testing this before, but just in case this button doesn't show, hit the I'm feeling lucky button and let it do its thing. This is what I wanted. Let's go back. We'll do I'm feeling lucky again. Okay, it's just going to force me. So we'll enter a search. We'll just search for our whatever. This is fine. Blizzard lawsuit. Cool. Doesn't matter. Then I can click AI mode here and then create a new window and create a new chat with AI mode. What AI mode does is it will comb through all the entries and compile results based on that. So it's just a faster way of getting the result out. So I have a prompt that I pre-wrote. I'm going to paste that in here and we'll discuss it. Based on the plant name, location, and season listed below, generate integer values for the number of days I should go between watering and fertilizing. I know that this will be an approximation, but give me a specific integer value for each. So all you have to do is fill out your plant, city, state, country, and season. Now I will say, I didn't want to overcomplicate this video by really taking into account the season. So we're going to fill one out here. I'm going to fill out summer, which generally speaking should be the shortest amount of time between watering and fertilizing because you're getting the most sun outside. There can be things that you can do to automate the seasonality, but for right now, the shortest amount of time between them should be summer, so we're going to default to summer and then just make that assumption for the rest of the video, okay? So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to take this stuff out and I'm just going to replace this. We'll start with Oxalis. We'll change this to Detroit, Michigan, USA. Obviously, if you're in a place that doesn't have states, you just put whatever your location is. I guess I could substitute for city, state, country, location, but in any case, that's what you should fill out there. And then the season, and then we'll hit enter. And you'll see this is kicking off a bunch of searches, looking at all of these, and then it gives me down here 7 days and 28 days. It's giving me numbers. This is not a science. Well, it is, but This method is not a science, it's an approximation. So you'll want to keep that in mind as you're using your system. Definitely take the qualitative measure with your plants and stick your finger in the soil. If they're super dry, it probably needs water, but this gives you a good baseline. So 7 days for water and 28 for fertilizer. And then I could say, do the same for a snake plant. And I could just have a little chit chat. And this one says water every 14 and fertilize every 28. So I can start getting my numbers out of this very, very, very easily. We don't have to guess. So let's come back here. And so we now know that our oxalis should be watered every 7 and fertilized every 28. And our snake plant should be every 14 and 28. Cool. So now we have those values there. And what I can do is I can bring this down just a little bit because these are massive. I know it's kind of hiding the titles, but I just want to collapse those just a smidge. Now, the next thing we want to do is, based on this watering, we'd like to do a quick calculation and fill out the next watered property. So I'm going to hide these values from the last video because we don't need to see them right here. And we need 2 new properties that are date properties. And we'll call this one next water, maybe next watering, make more sense. And then we'll duplicate this and call this next fertilizing and change that to our little daisy. And then we'll bring this over. And again, we're not going to worry so much about placement and all of this in this video. This is mostly the demonstration of how to do this stuff. You could style this a little better and hide things and stuff like that to make it less chaotic. We'll say that. Highly recommend. Go back to my initial video, my first couple videos, and check those out because they definitely cover those if you haven't seen them yet. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take a calculation between this and how many days we want to add to it, and we want to fill this value out. We don't want to do it with a formula because we don't want it to be dynamic. We want it to stay static. So we want to edit the button to do our new stuff. And I actually recorded this a second ago, thought about it, and stopped and came back to this because I started editing the property on this page for next watering, but realized I want to make sure that the next watering is calculated after our last watered property is already updated. And I'm pretty sure it would be if I edited this here, but just a little bit of insurance, I'm going to do it down here as a new action, and I'm going to choose edit property, next watering, and we want to do a custom formula on that. And we could either fill this out as an AI prompt or we could write it ourselves, but let's use the AI thing because I've been finding this to be pretty fun. So what I want to do is I want to add to the current last watered property the number of days listed in the water frequency property and hit go. Now we're going to see what it's going to do. In theory, it should do a days between or date add, something like that, and do that value and then in days. Yep, date add, that's what it did. So let's look at what this formula is doing. It actually thought of a contingency that I probably would have caught in testing, but it thought of it itself, which is fantastic. It's saying here, it's using a simple conditional, and it's saying if the last watered field is empty, i.e. there's nothing to add to, do it from now, today's date. Now, there will always be one because we set it up such that that value will be filled out first, but it's a good catch, and it's not going to hurt to have this here. It's saying add now water frequency in days. Otherwise, if it's not empty, meaning it's already got a value there, we're going to take the last watered and add the water frequency in days and hit save. Great. Let's give that a shot. So today is September 1st. In theory, when I hit this button, this should now populate with what hopefully is September 8th. Ding, 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 ding. That's exactly what it did. So now we have a next watering date. And this is only the first piece. We got one more thing to do with this before it will actually function in a helpful way. This is fine, but there's an automation we can do to improve it. So we're going to edit this, and all I want to do is copy this prompt. And then we'll come to the fertilizer, and we got to do the same thing. Edit property, next fertilizing, custom formula. And then we're going to paste that formula in. And now we need to come through here and modify this to change this from last watered to last fertilized. And then we want to do fertilizer frequency here, and then last fertilized and fertilizer frequency. And it's doing all the same stuff. We just want it updated for fertilizer and save. And so theoretically, when I hit fertilizer, it should add 28. So I'm going to guess it should say September 29th. And that's what it does, which is fantastic. So now we have these values. We actually don't really need to see these because what we're going to do is we're going to set up a couple of checkboxes and say needs water, needs fertilizer, and then we're going to use an automation to check these dates every single day and tells Notion to check the boxes if they need to be watered or fertilized. So let's add a couple more properties. We're going to add a checkbox here, and we're going to say needs water. Again, with our handy water icon, that thing is getting a workout. Duplicate this, needs fertilizer. And then in this case, this is one where we can very easily alt drag these all the way in because we know what they're for. And that way they're tiny properties. And we might not even need to see these on this view. We could set up a view that only shows the stuff that's checked. We probably can do that. It'd be pretty easy. But what we need to do first is we need to set up our automation. So we're going to use this button to set up a new automation, and we'll call this needs water / fertilizer. And the trigger, we're going to do this every day. And I like this around midnight, and that will run every single day. Actually, we may want to make sure, okay, 12 to 3 a.m. It should always run after midnight, so that's fine. We want to make sure that it's today. And then what we want to do is we want to edit pages in Houseplant Tracker database, and we'll edit pages that match a filter where next watering start date is today. And then all we need to do is set the needs water to checked. And we want to do the same thing, edit pages in Houseplant Tracker database. We need a separate filter where next fertilizing is today. And again, we're going to set the needs fertilizer checkbox to checked and enable. Now, I can't actually let this run today because it's going to run when it runs, right? It's going to run every day at around midnight. And so it's going to look to see, is our next watering date of September, let's say it runs tomorrow morning. If this date, September 2nd, is today, then I'm going to check that box. Same thing, if today happened to be the 29th and it ran and it was September 29th, I'm going to check that box. Those are very straightforward, and those will happen automatically in the background. Now, something I will say is we should modify our buttons to uncheck these by default, because if we've hit the watered button, it doesn't need water anymore, so we can tell that to clear. So let's edit this, and then we can stick that in this. That's fine. We can choose, this one's watered, so we're going to choose needs water, and we'll set it to unchecked. So that way when we hit the watered button, that goes away. And then we want to do the same thing to our needs fertilizer, and we'll choose unchecked and say, I could have added it up here as well. It does not matter. Again, I only did these down here to make sure that this value updated first, but I could have added the uncheck action to either spot in case you were wondering. And we'll test this as well. So now let's check a few of these just to get some examples. And then what we're going to do, let's look at our other views and see if any of these make any more sense to duplicate from. We'll just create a new view. We'll create a table, and we'll call this today. Now, obviously, if we forgot to do it, it's not today, but it's stuff that needs to be done. So you could come up with a name like that too if you wanted. I'm going to give it a day icon. And then what we can do is we can hide a bunch of this stuff. We're going to hide the numbers of days. We probably don't need to see when last watered. Don't need to see our water and fertilizer days column. Don't need to see basically any of this except for our checkboxes. Can hide our log entries. And now we'll bring these all the way over. Bring our watered to the left of that and fertilized to the left of that. And maybe we'll make this just to create a little bit of a gap. I'll make that a little wider. So now it's really easy to spot. And now what we need to do is set up a filter. So we're going to rely on our previous sorting and filtering video. We're going to come to this filter and we're going to choose add advanced filter. And then we want where either this checkbox or this checkbox are checked. So where either needs water is checked or needs fertilizer is checked. And now it will show us each of these. And as I clear them, so I check the fertilize button, it'll disappear. Same thing for the watered on the ZZ. Button failed to execute. I wonder what that's about. Let's try it again. Let's see what's going on there. Okay, I just realized I was hitting an error, and I just figured out what it is. I believe, and we could take this into account if we wanted. We could go back and modify this, but I realized that I forgot to add water and fertilizer frequency to my plant, which is why it wasn't running. So let's quickly jump back into AI mode, paste this in. We'll say ZZ plant, say Detroit, Michigan, put the country, it'll know. And then summer, 14 and 60. So we'll stick those in there. And then now I should be able to hit watered and it will execute like it's supposed to. And then finally, the oxalis We can choose watered, but it will stay because fertilizer is still checked, and then we can click that and it will go through. Now, we could edit our automation to account for that by inserting a default value of 0, so know that that's a thing. But you know what? Here, we'll just do it like this. It's a challenge. Go off and do it on your own, add it, and let me know how it worked out for you. But for real, you could do that and it would work just fine. But that happens, sometimes you run into errors and it takes a second to troubleshoot, and it took me a minute to figure it out, but here we are and everything is working. And now we have this really robust, simple to use houseplant tracker, and you've gotten through a giant swath of Notion features. And really, if you picked up all the stuff that we've covered, you're pretty much a Notion expert at this point. Like, you can do lots and lots of things, maybe a Notion intermediate expert, something like that. But you can do lots and lots of things in Notion with just the skills that we've covered in these simple videos. If you want to download this, head to queerefficiency.com/beginner and you can grab this there. You'll get to the whole Notion for Beginners hub, and all of the entries there line up with a YouTube video so you can watch and edit along together. If you've been with me from the beginning of the Notion for Beginners series and have watched everything all the way through, I really appreciate you being here. This has been such a joy to create, and I hope you've learned so much. If this is your first video, head back to the beginning of the series and catch the rest of the stuff that I show. It's pretty cool to watch this houseplant tracker develop from the very beginning. So now that you've mastered the basics of Notion, let's dive deeper into one of its most powerful features. I've got a video for you that walks through 5 unique ways of using Notion's really powerful button tools. These simple tips will help you supercharge your workspace. That video is on your screen now, and I will see you over there.